Where do those numbers put him fantasy wise? Do you see the column all the way to the right?
Talking about for Jaden?
Yeah.
1?
Yeah, that would put him first. The 2025 fantasy projections from ESPN's Mike Clay. They're out. They got updated on Friday and then put out today. And off we go, Anthony. We have team projections, and then he does all his category leaders, and he also ranks the coaching staffs, and he does. Mike does a lot of work in this document, the official 2025 NFL projection guide. By the way, before I get into the commanders of it all, what's anything as you flipped through here that you thought was very interesting?
I mean, he has our win total at like, what was it, 8.7, I think it was?
Yeah, he's got 8.7. So they do that based off of the weekly score projections and the win probabilities. And so it's a little bit more than just a straight up, like, I think this game. So they try to do a data version or data-driven version of it. So they've got like 66% win probability against the Giants, but only 42% against Green Bay, meaning it's a probable loss. 71% at home against Vegas. It says they're going to start pretty good, and then they hit a tougher stretch, and that game against Philly at the end of the season is currently a 35% chance, and it's like, yeah, you're at Philadelphia. That one's going to be tough, but by the same token, we don't know what happens if, again, God forbid, Jalen Hurts gets hurt at the end or before the end of the season. Then those last two games against Philly, 2 of the final 3, look a lot different. So that definitely did hit me, but also their strength of schedule ranking is 22nd, as in like one of the hardest in the leagues. That would be 10th hardest in the league. And that definitely stood out. I think the other thing, too, is they think the Commanders' defense is going to be, like, they projected to be the 31st defense in the league, second to last.
And you're giving up the most points, too.
I find that hard to believe.
Like, come on, bro.
And if you're going to do this based off of projections on individual players, I get it. I get it to an extent. I understand that the stats aren't going to necessarily look great for this team, but I think that he's got them 8th offensively. I think that 8th ranked offense is going to be a big reason why you probably aren't the 31st ranked defense. Like, I also think they're better with some of their personnel than I think that this projection accounts for. I think that they will be better defensively this year than they were last year, and they were not, the 32nd ranked defense last year. But that's my own personal belief in this coaching staff. It's my own personal belief in what I think Dan Quinn is capable of and Joe Witt Jr. and how they clearly had a vision for certain things they wanted, and Adam Peters is very good at finding those things. But when you look into some of the individuals, and also just like, there's certain things that they project that I'm like, I don't think that's how that's going to play out. They project Brandon Coleman, and it's going to be hilarious because there's some people that are so mad at me for suggesting that this could happen. But they have Brandon Coleman playing right tackle. They have Josh Connerly as the backup right tackle. I don't think that's how that's going to go down. I think both of them are going to be on the field. They've got Tunsil, Allegretti, Biotish, Wiley, Coleman as the offensive line. I think it will be Tunsil, Coleman, Biotish, Wiley, Connerly until Cosme comes back, right? So that could seriously affect things, for better or for worse, because you have a rookie all of a sudden in there, and how does he play? Or maybe this is correct. Maybe he does wind up being a backup to start. It feels crazy for a first-round pick, but at a position where you've got a little bit of veteran depth, maybe they decide to develop him and to give him a year to try to learn how to play the right side because he's never played a right side of the offensive line before. They've got Luke McCaffrey being their leader in kick returns in terms of the attempts. They've only got it doing, 17. But, I think that's going to be Jalen Lane as their primary kick returner, and they're going to make sure he gets the ball. They also seemingly do projections for everybody playing the same number of games. So they've got Jaden Daniels projected to play 15 and Marcus Mariota 2, which, by the way, is kind of what it was last year. But then they've got all the running backs playing 14. All the receivers playing 15 except for Michael Gallup playing 14, who I keep forgetting is on the team. But Zach Ertz, Ben Sinnott, John Bates, all playing 15 games, and their stat projections reflect that. So there's a bunch of stuff that it's not going to play out that way, and how it ultimately plays out is probably going to have a big effect on the season. If Terry McLaurin can play 17 healthy games again, that seems really relevant and important. They have Terry projected to get 117 targets, 77 catches, 1,032 yards, 7 touchdowns. And I got to say, those numbers feel kind of right to me. Maybe a little low on the catches, potentially, depending on how things go, but that feels kind of right. Debo, 26 rushing attempts, 116 yards, 90 targets, 58 catches, 820 yards, 4 touchdowns. That feels kind of right.
Yeah.
The interesting one is Jaden. Or the two, I'll tell you the two most interesting to me. Jaden coming in at 3,700 yards, 23 touchdowns, 10 picks. 129 rushing attempts, 711 yards, 6 touchdowns. That feels maybe a little light. I think there's definitely a chance he's a 4,000-yard passer this year if he can play 17 games, which he did not last year. I mean, he did, but he didn't. He didn't play 17 full games last year. But it is probably worth pointing out that in these are ultimately fantasy rankings, Anthony. And where do those numbers put him fantasy wise? Do you see the column all the way to the right?
Talking about for Jaden?
Yeah.
1?
Yeah, that would put him first. And all fantasy quarterbacks. So you can say he's going to throw for 4,000 or he's going to do this. 23 if he accounts for almost 30 touchdowns, that's going to put the Commanders in a spot to win a lot of football games. The other interesting one to me is Brian Robinson.
Yeah,
he's got 185 rushes, 776 yards, 8 touchdowns. For reference, last year, Robinson went 187 yards, 187 attempts, 799 yards, 8 touchdowns. So that is almost identical to what he's got this year. 2 less carries, a few less yards, same number of touchdowns. But obviously Robinson last year missed a couple of games. So, just right on track. What happens if he stays healthy? If he doesn't, can guys like Krosky Merritt, et cetera, fill up the stat sheet? So here's my question for folks on the phones at 301-230-0980. That's right, 5 o'clock hour. We're talking to you today. We're taking some 5 o'clock calls. 301-230-0980 is the phone number. And the question is simply, who do you think will overperform what everyone else thinks in 2025? So who's the guy that when you're talking to your buddies, hey, I think this guy's going to have a bigger year than people expect in 2025 for the Commanders. 301-230-0980. We take your calls.
This is the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.